Hey there, Groovesters, Groove Stars, Ridgely here with another Lessons from the CEO, and I am delighted to be joined by my great friend, Maritsa Kelley, who is the co-founder of Striking Brilliance. Yes, indeed. And first of all, thanks so much, Maritsa. I know it's early in the morning, and I appreciate you.
Of course, I'm so excited to be here today. So thank you for having me.
Now, let's just jump in. Tell us, were you always an entrepreneur, or did you start out in some other vein and move over? What was your basic original journey? Take us back.
So my husband likes to say that I am unemployable, right? I started off working as a personal trainer in my late teens, early 20s when I went to school. And I quickly realized that the traditional work style 9 to 5 just was not going to work for me. My parents are entrepreneurs. So I've never had to deal with like the confines of like asking for time off or asking for school off and things like that. So it was going to be like when you grow up in an entrepreneurial family, it's very difficult to start to try to adapt to what the rest of the world is doing.
Mhm. And did you ever go that corporate route, or did you go straight into from training and stuff to running your own company?
I taught high school while I was in graduate school, and I always made sure that my schedule, like I would have my courses that I was teaching my students the first block of the morning, and then the last two classes were like my quote unquote planning period, and I would always leave to go work on other more entrepreneurial business type things. So I've never really had a traditional job as a professional. It's mainly since my early to mid 20s working for myself, either as a consultant or in my own business, or just kind of picking up different things while I built my business.
And so, with that in mind, I mean that's a little different, obviously, than the person that makes the transition. So you've seen it since the very beginning. You've always had that bug. Tell us, what do you think are the two top or three, the first couple top characteristics of a successful entrepreneur?
I think one is having the ability to innovate, right? Maybe building on concepts that other people are doing that you could improve on, finding a need within the community of what people want to buy. I think a lot of entrepreneurs get into this space and they're like, I want to create this, but that may not really be what the market wants for you to create. But you can always kind of backdoor your passion project in if you already build a community that already likes and loves what you have to offer. And the next one, the third one would be really to be able to pivot, because just because you spend a lot of time, energy, and money in creating something doesn't mean that it's a worthwhile project. And I've had some of these instances in my life where I've created a business that was very monetarily successful, but it was not in alignment with how I wanted to live my life. So I came to a point where I said, okay, am I going to be miserable and make a lot of money? Or am I going to find another way to make a lot of money while also being extremely happy?
So talk to me a little bit more about that pivot concept, because that's one of those. It's really hard when you poured your guts and soul into something and you really think it has value and you're invested in the deal, but somehow the market says, we don't care.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think most entrepreneurs have done this at one point or another where we just get so excited by this influx of ideas and we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. And we don't do our due diligence to look at what the actual ROI is going to be. So we start this business without doing the proper market research, which everybody should do when getting into a business. And you're just dumping time, energy, and money into it. You've got great systems in place, but it's just, I mean, you can have businesses that are making 50, $100,000 a month. But if your overhead is costing you more than that or in alignment with that, you would be better off getting a job. And I've been in situations like that where I had a business that was doing well, like quote unquote, well, because it was making money. But the amount of money that I was spending to make the money and the amount of time that I was putting into it and my staff had to put into it, and the ads that we were running just didn't make sense. So I really had to sit down with myself and ask myself, what is my goal in business? My goal in business is, one, to always help people, two, to have fun while doing it, and three, to make money. So one, I was helping a lot of people, but I wasn't having fun, and I wasn't making enough money to make it worth it for me to continue to invest my time and energy into that. And that's, I think really being aligned in your value system and understanding who you are, not just as a person, but as a business owner, helps you to get more clarity and confidence when making a decision to say, you know what, this isn't a good idea for me anymore. And it's not coming from a disempowered space, right? You feel good about saying, hey, this isn't good for me. You're not doing it begrudgingly. You're like, no, listen, I play poker, right? So I like to look at it this way. You were dealt pocket aces, but the flop comes out and it's rag cards. You got to know when to throw in your cards.
100%. And in line with that, tell us about some error, setback, colossal or otherwise, that you had along your entrepreneurial journey and what you took away from that.
Oh man. Okay. So I got really, really screwed over. I made a very, very bad business deal, and it hurt in a lot of different ways. It hurt emotionally and it hurt financially. So I had a business that was 7-figure a year business, started it in my early 20s, and it was just turning and burning, turning and burning. But I decided that it just wasn't filling my cup, and it was a lot of time that was causing me a lot of stress. So I met with a friend. We were at a little breakfast place, and he said to me, he goes, but you're so successful. And I said, yeah. I said, but my heart just isn't in it anymore, and I want to get out. And he's like, oh, I have somebody who might want to buy your business. And I was like, okay, cool, great. Met with this guy, seemed legit, investor. And over the next 6 months, we created a plan to sell my company after they did like their auditing and making sure that the numbers were what I said they were. And when I sold the company, they came in, they locked the doors as soon as the bank accounts were switched over, and they stopped payment on their checks. And it went to
Oh,
litigation for 7 years. I spent more money in attorney fees than I ever made. And they tried to steal everything from my, my investments using the company name. Cause, obviously like I had done investments through the company, but for myself personal, like 401ks and things like that for retirement. And it was pretty devastating. And I lost close to $3 million on that deal. And because when that whole thing went through, I also had a non-compete that I still had to abide by for the first 4.5 years almost. So here I am. I can't work in the industry that I know. I'm out my income, my salary that I was paying myself. I'm out all the money that was in my bank account. And now I'm paying attorneys thousands of dollars a month to fight this thing. And I was in, at one point, I think it was like over 2 days, it was 5 hours each day for a 10-hour deposition where they were just terrible, mean, lied. So that's probably one of the worst things that I had to go through. And my husband at the time, we worked together, so it impacted both of us. And, here we are, we just had a new baby. We had another son at home, and we can't make money.
my gosh. And so how did you come out of that? What was the extraordinarily painful learning that you walked away with from something so devastating?
So if it wasn't for that, you and I would not be having this conversation right now, because that conversation invited me the opportunity to pivot. In the middle of my pivot, I met Michael Stevenson, who you know,
Mhm.
and I started my journey more transitioning towards coaching. So I had already been certified as a coach, and I had already been doing coaching. And I just started to pivot back to saying, okay, because my last business was owning drug and alcohol treatment centers and mental health facilities. And I said, okay, well, that was super stressful. What makes me happy? Dance makes me happy. Fitness makes me happy. Coaching makes me happy. And I met Michael and I went through some of his programs, and it inspired me to start a new coaching business and then a coaching certification company and wellness company. So I focused more on mindset and wellness as opposed to, severe mental illness. And Joe was able to really get into, Joe, my husband, was really able to get into his genius zone because he is very passionate working in the addiction space. Ended up writing a best-selling book about his story of dealing with mental health and substance use disorder. So it really, it felt like a setback, but it was more of a slingshot.
Mhm. I love that. And I love that guy, Joe. He's a great, great
He's
guy.
great.
Please
Yeah.
tell him so. Now, along the way, you had to pick up some mentors, some
Yeah.
people to help. Michael Josephson, Michael Stevenson being probably one of them. So, what kind of an impact has mentorship had on your journey?
Huge. I mean, mentorship is so important. When I first joined where we met to the mastermind, it was very scary because I had just come from a place where I literally lost every dollar that I had. And then, well, every dollar I had coming in. Luckily, I had money in the bank and I'm not like a crazy spender, but um, to make that investment into joining a group of people that I really didn't know anything about. Like I met Glenn and I liked him, and I knew Michael, and I trust Michael and Kayla. So that was important for me. But mentorship, joining the masterminds, hiring mentors, having my own personal, I have a business coach and I have a wellness coach. And I work out at a couple different gyms where I have fitness coaches. Even though I know what to do, like I know what to do in the gym. I used to compete in, bodybuilding competitions and fitness competitions. I know what to do in business. Like I've run successful businesses. I know what to do with my mental health. I've been a licensed therapist for almost 20 years, but it's not about knowing what to do. It's having people who do it every day, who are there to hold you accountable, who are there to guide you in your blind spots. Because, just because I've been driving since I was 16 doesn't mean every once in a while I might pull out into traffic and have a blind spot and a car might be coming up behind me. So I really use my mentors to help me with my blind spots, help me to improve. I always want to be a better version of myself. And sometimes it's really uncomfortable when it's pointed out, and it's so needed. I just got called out on something the other day. My business partner and I are working on a number of projects, and, she was like, hey, do you think you could do this instead? And I was like, okay. And I felt the resistance there, but with the resistance, it's making me better. I'm learning technology, things that have not been my forte, so to speak, and then just getting better. It allows me to get better at what I do and reach more people as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't possibly agree more. Tangential to that or parallel to that, how do you feel about personal development, ongoing personal, professional development, training yourself, et cetera, sharpening the sword?
It's something that I do in my life. I invest a lot of time and money into personal and professional development. My first 3 hours of every day are spent on me. I wake up very early, between 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning, and I spend my time in prayer, meditation, the gym. I spend time with my puppies, and just my husband and I actually started a new thing where we get together in the morning and we pray together, and then we journal together about like how we want our day and our life to look so that we can be in more alignment with each other. So for us, personal and professional development looks like going to our church regularly, committing to spending time with people who fill our cup and we can fill theirs as well, so that we're in alignment with the company that we keep, that it's constantly positive. My two best friends are my parents. And in fact, I have a dinner date with them later tonight. So I love spending time with my family. In personal development, it's just all about, sharpening like you said, sharpening my end. And I actually am starting a new series and A Course in Miracles. My coach is coming back from Panama, where he's been, and I've been meeting with him online. So, and professional development, I mean, I'm always, always, always learning. I've not been out of school for more than 3 months or without a professional mentor for more than 3 months since I was 4 years old.
Awesome. So all that said, you brought up the idea of the technology thing and kind of trying to work with it. So got to ask you the question, talk to me about AI. What do you
Ah,
think AI, what's your take on AI? Where do you think it's going? How important is it for budding entrepreneurs, no matter how old they are, to pay attention?
I love AI. I'm a person who's in my head a lot, and sometimes it becomes a little difficult to take the concepts that I have and put them on paper. I'm good at articulating them with my words. I think that's the therapist in me. But when it comes down to actually, writing it and transcribing it out, sometimes I get stuck. So AI has presented me with an opportunity to where I use ChatGPT, and I can talk to ChatGPT and direct it with my ideas. And, sometimes it'll spit something out that's garbage, but you start to train it to think how you are. And it's been fantastic. I mean, I've literally put together 104 episodes for my YouTube channel in less than 5 minutes. Now each topic wasn't perfect the first time around, but I kept training it. Like, this is what I want to talk about. This is, I'm looking for topics to engage my audience. This is who my audience is. This is what my audience likes. This is what my audience doesn't like. And I've used it to really just allow myself to be in my creative flow more without getting stuck in the things that I would have to have hired a copywriter for. And not that copywriters are obsolete. Like, I still work with some fantastic copywriters, but it just gives me an opportunity to get what I need now rather than having to wait.
Mhm. Yeah, and where do you think it's going? If you look out toward the future, and the question I always like to ask people is, do you really think you are going to be able to successfully survive and thrive
Mhm.
without using AI? Where
Yeah.
do you
So
think
yeah, I think we could absolutely survive without using AI. If you're a creative person, you have the ability to, like I said before, pivot, right? You have something, you don't have something. It shouldn't be difficult because as entrepreneurs, as creatives, we're able to be innovative and figure out solutions. I mean, just like when my son was walking around in his walker for the first time and he kept banging into my custom designed walls. I literally took a pool noodle and I duct taped it to the walker, right? Like, we figure things out. It might not be the best solution, but you figure that out for the meantime and then you work into something else. Where it's going in the future, I wish I could say I knew, but it's rapidly increased in its capabilities within the past 6 months to beyond what I think anybody thought it would, that I wouldn't even be able to answer that question and feel confident in that answer.
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard to figure out what that looks like given the speed of improvement. It's like every week there's something else. And I found myself thinking, okay, just stay in your zone of genius. Just because there's this thing AI does not mean that you can create a Michelangelo style painting nor write a symphony. Okay, just don't do that. But if I could just stay with what I'm doing, then I think it's a huge tool. All right, so here's my favorite question. My favorite question is this: if you could step back in time with this click, 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 you're clicking on a time warp and you went back 25 years to the Maritsa at that point is Yzaguirre, and said to you, and had the opportunity to have a conversation with her, knowing all that you know now with the experience and the wisdom. And oh, by the way, the answer, oh, I think everything's worked out like it's supposed to. That's not a good enough answer. Sorry. What would you want to say to the younger, not less beautiful Maritsa than with what you know today?
Well, since you took the answer I was originally going to use, uh, no, I would honestly tell her to trust the process. I would tell her to stay confident, believe in herself, know that what she has value, and never question that. Um, you know, one of the things I didn't get into is when I worked in the treatment industry, and you and I had talked about it a little bit offline, it was a very male dominated field. In fact, to this day, over 20 years later, I still don't know any female business owners in that space who don't have a male partner. So I'd tell her to just, walk in those rooms with your shoulders back, your head held high. And if somebody has a problem with it, that's their problem. It's not your problem, and to really just be confident and clear. And I think one of the things that I lacked a little bit in my younger days was clarity and confidence. Those were the things I would look for other people. I was the first one out of my parents to go to college, so I would look towards other people, and maybe sometimes I asked the wrong people for feedback. So I'd probably get more clear on knowing who to ask for feedback, and then that would help me to be more clear and confident in my path, because I think that what happens is when you are confused, it really leads into making decisions from a disempowered space, because you don't know if it's the right decision to do, the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do, so you just do it begrudgingly or reluctantly. And I think if I would have had more confidence and clarity in my younger days, not that I necessarily would have changed anything, but at least I would have said, like, this was my decision. I don't have any regrets. And I moved forward, easily and effortlessly to get to where I'm at right now, which is a pretty darn good place.
Love that. All right. Give us three resources, three books that you've read that made a big impact. Could be a podcast if you like. Three resources that an entrepreneur could tap into that would help them along their journey. What would those be?
So a book that I love is called, it's really short too, but it's a lot of question and answers in the book. It's called The Journey to Greatness. And the guy's first name, I believe, is Noah. The last name is starts with a B, but it's very I think
I'll
it's
find it.
French. Yeah, but it's a really good one. I'll send you the link. So that's a good one. A podcast I love. I listen to Joel Osteen every morning. Like, it's really, I mean, I find him very motivational. So I listen to that every morning. Another book that I read that I really enjoyed was Good to Great. And I got one more for you. Mastering the Rockefeller Habits was a really good one for business, because it really gets into the nitty gritty of really mapping out your business to be the most successful it could be.
Okay, so let's dive into a couple of those because two of those are among my favorites. Good
Okay.
to Great, I said for many, many years was the best business book that I'd ever read. And I absolutely loved it. And for those who don't know, Good to Great was written by Jim Collins, and he has a staff of PhD candidates and master's degree candidates at Stanford University that are working for him to do research over the entire industry of all companies to find out which companies went from being good companies to great, meaning sustainable, tremendous success over 15 years or more. So the companies obviously are really rock solid. What was the thing? What stuck out to you the most from that one?
I've always I've always wanted to do good work, and I didn't recognize that doing things that were good and being good enough, right, was not operating from a place of excellence. And I think that's what stood out to me, especially, I do also own a wellness center where it's customer service based. And even in the mental health and treatment space, you're doing customer service, right? You're bringing people in at sometimes their lowest point in life and helping them to feel comfortable. And when I started to apply it for my own business, the concepts that he laid out in there, and I started to recognize that there's a difference. Like, when you walk into, let's say, a Panera Bread, and you order a soup and a salad, that soup and salad might cost you $8, $9. You can get that soup and salad, that same soup and salad at the Ritz-Carlton or the Boca Beach Club. And that same soup and salad is going to cost you $45, maybe even $55. What you're paying for is you're not paying for necessarily better quality, but you're paying for the experience. And being able to offer somebody a great experience, you and I were talking about it earlier, in where I live, it's been a great experience. They don't mind spending the money. They don't mind doing a little bit more because they feel that they're receiving the value in other ways.
Yeah, exactly. And mastering the Rockefeller habits obviously comes from, I mean, there's a whole bunch of work that was done basically studying the habits of the Rockefellers. And Vern Harnish was the author of that book. Vern Harnish and I have spent some time together a number of times. Very cool, because he was one of the big mentors in the Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO. In fact, he moved to Barcelona just to hang out because of EOers over there. So what did you take from that? Because I love that book, and I for years used the one-page
Oh, the one page one.
methodology.
Yeah. So, I mean, that one page and understanding your BHAG was like your big, hairy, audacious goals. Like, that was the biggest thing for me, is being able to sit down in a management meeting. I actually use that management template for my staff for years on how to run our morning meeting to just make it more efficient and more effective. Because I started creating like systems, right? As an acronym, like saves you serious time, energy, and money. Because when you're running a big company and you have hundreds of employees and everyone has their own agenda that's not in alignment with the core values of the company, you have chaos. So really just getting the company in alignment with the company's core values, the mission statement, and how the daily operations should be followed through in order to be in alignment with the overall goals was so important, especially as a young entrepreneur running a service-based business in the treatment space, where everything in the treatment space starts to feel like an emergency. So being able to decipher what's actually an emergency and what's not, so that you can run a efficient business to where you're like, the clients who go in there are already dealing with so much, that I wanted to be able to run a business to where, regardless of what was going on behind the scenes, the audience or the clients never saw it. Everything looked perfect.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, the takeaway is we're talking about really taking books and using them, taking information and using it, taking a podcast for inspiration to go use the information that you learn from the books. So, so important. Systems, save yourself serious time, energy, and money. I love that. I am using that, going with
Yes.
your permission, with your blessing.
Absolutely. Yes. Use it. I love it. And, I use it in so many different ways because, when you don't have systems or policies and procedures or SOPs in place, or people aren't following them, because like you said, you can have things in place, but the things in place only work if they're being followed and understood the importance of why we follow them.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Final words to the entrepreneurs out there in the world. Maritsa, what would you want to say to them as we wrap this up today? A little nugget or tip from you.
Yeah. So I would tell you to trust yourself and make sure that you align yourself with a group of really powerful mentors and coaches to support you on your journey. Because even though you might be in business alone, you still need the support, love, and guidance of those who have already been there.
Maritsa, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, energy. Love you a ton. And yes, one more successful series of literally gems coming out for all the entrepreneurs of the world. Really deeply appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really had a good time.
It was a pleasure.